What if I told you that a nuclear test conducted by India almost 50 years ago is still influencing global nuclear policy debate? From the nuclear waste being generated and how to dispose it in the United States of America to international non-proliferation, the impact of 1974 nuclear test conducted by India is far greater than many people realize. So in this video, let us try to understand this interesting story of operation that is referred as Smiling Buddha conducted in Pokhran, and how after so many decades it is influencing the global nuclear debate. So first of all, to give you the reason why we are discussing this topic. So very recently in United States of America, a debate was going on regarding the decentralization of nuclear waste storage. We know that United States of America is one of the largest holder of nuclear weapon, and as well as it generates humongous amount of energy from its nuclear energy plant, nuclear power plant. When uranium is used to generate electricity, and in that process many radioactive waste is generated, that radioactive waste has to be stored in such a way that it does not harm the environment, people, pollution, it does not cause pollution. And that's why the recent aim of the government of US, or US government, we can say, is to decentralize it. That means to not store waste at one place, rather store it multiple places based on the agreement by the state government and such. Currently, if we talk about most, or we can say almost 100% of US nuclear waste is stored in the region that is referred as Yucca Mountain. The site is Yucca Mountain. You can see this is the Nevada, the state of United States of America. So Yucca Mountain in the state of Nevada, we can say in somewhere in the western part of United States of America. The focus was on ensuring safety and security of nuclear waste generated in the processes. It is in this context then the discussion was going on about what happened in 1974. Now let us try to also understand what was going on before 1974. Before 1974, many countries of the world were trying to develop use nuclear technology for the energy development, energy creation. Basically, we can say this electricity generation purposes, for the research purposes, and also in the medical sciences. This entire program was done under what is referred as atoms for peace. That means the use of nuclear power for the peaceful purposes. Here, in this context, whenever the fuel that was spent after generating electricity in the nuclear power plant, it was simply viewed as a waste. Nothing to do from this fuel, nothing to do from this spent fuel. Simply, it has to be discarded, discharged in a safer way. Civilian nuclear power before 1974 and nuclear weapons, they were considered as two separate worlds with no interlinkage as such. And this is something that is going to change once India conducts the Operation Smiling Buddha. It was conducted on 18th May 1974 in the westernmost part of Rajasthan, as you can see from the map here. This is the region that is referred as Pokhran. So westernmost part of Rajasthan, Pokhran, under the overall guidance of many scholars such as Homi Jahangir Bhabha and all. So India conducted its first successful nuclear explosion. This nuclear explosion, India said it is a peaceful nuclear explosion. India is not going to use it unless and until it is extremely necessary as such. Now, when we talk about before coming to this entire timeline, that how it unfolded, I would want to bring your attention to the fact that Legacy IAS Academy, we are going to soon commence batches. The batches are going to start on 3rd of August, 7th of September, and 3rd of November. This is going to be a regular weekday batch that will be where classes will be held Monday to Friday between 10 to 5 p.m. as such. Similarly, for those aspirants who are preparing for this examination along with the full-time job or full-time studies, they can only get time on the Saturday and Sunday. That's why for them, we also have weekend batches which are going to commence on 8th of August, 10th of October, and 12th of December. In all these batches, we ensure that all the GF papers are comprehensively covered. We also ensure that students are able to prepare for this exam in an integrated manner, where we try to use things such as daily mains and writing practice. We also have test series for prelims and mains examinations, so students can evaluate their strengths and weaknesses and all. And we know that students also require guidance and help support after the classroom, and for them, that's why we have one-to-one mentorship and doubt solving sessions where they can get all their doubts solved, whether it is the curriculum related doubt, course related doubt, or even general preparation related doubt. Also, we know that UPSC examination, especially mains, optional, play a very important role in deciding your rank or even in determining whether your name would be in the list or not. So for that, we have psychology, PSIR, anthropology, and sociology. optional. The classes are going to commence on 17th of August. If you want to know more detail about the course program, features and all, you can give a call to the number being displayed here. You can also download our Legacy IAS app, which will definitely help you in preparing for the examination. So when 1974 India was able to complete its successful nuclear explosion or nuclear test in Pokhran, basically a new debate emerged. That debate was related to nuclear reprocessing. As we have seen, till 1974, many of the countries across the world used to think that the spent fuel is just a waste. It has no utility or use as such, and that is something changed by the nuclear this test in India. So basically, India used its fuel that was prepared from the civilian program, that was basically part of civilian program, and using that fuel, uranium fuel that is used to generate electricity in nuclear reactor, then reactor we know generate electricity, then the fuel is spent, and then in the spent fuel also, if you look, there is a uranium that can again be reused, there is a plutonium that is developed or generated as a byproduct that can be used in the nuclear reactor and nuclear weapon. So basically what actually is a new thinking or new thought process, that the spent fuel can be reprocessed to the chemical process which separates the useful material from the spent fuel. After that, the plutonium is extracted, separated, and it can then be purified enough, it can be enriched enough to make it suitable for creating a nuclear weapon. That means we can say weapon grade plutonium can be prepared here. Once the weapon grade plutonium is prepared, further processing makes it suitable for a bomb core, and then plutonium is used in the core of a nuclear bomb. India's 1974 test did exactly the same. India used plutonium from the Cyrus research reactors. It was supplied for the peaceful use, that means for the electricity generation as such, and conducted a nuclear explosion on 18th May 1974 as such. Now, this is the photograph of the historical Cyrus reactor that you are seeing here. The spent fuel from this reactor is something that we use to create a nuclear bomb, plutonium from Cyrus reactor. Now, if you try to think about it, Canada supplied this reactor, US supplied heavy water that is used as a coolant in the reactor as such, and also sometimes moderator. And thus largely the relation between US, Canada and India was that India would use all these material supplied by them in the peaceful purposes of energy generation only. But India, though it described 1974 explosion as a peaceful nuclear explosion, still countries, especially US and Canada, understood that civilian technology can also be linked to nuclear proliferation, can also be used for the nuclear weapon or bomb generation. Thus, nuclear waste, which till now was only a waste, was only seen as from the angle of environmental perspective, from the safety perspective. Now it also to some extent became a security issue, and there is a need felt to increase the scrutiny of such nuclear waste as such. And that's why a global governance model began to take shape, where a stronger export control regime were established, enhanced IAEA safeguard was instituted. IAEA is no stand for International Atomic Energy Agencies, and the overall objective of this safeguard was to ensure that nuclear material, wherever it is being produced, no matter whichever country, whichever jurisdiction it is being produced, it has to be monitored more closely. And also IAEA has to ensure that the civilian programs were not diverted for military purposes. Whatever nuclear material, nuclear related reactors or technologies being used for civilian program, they should not be diverted for military purposes, such as making of nuclear weapons and bombs and such. Canada and US reassessed their cooperation policy, global nuclear cooperation policy, such as in the case of Cyrus reactor, and they also began to make significant changes there. It is this particular event that we can say also was a precursor for the establishment of nuclear suppliers group, NSG, whose membership India is trying to seek for several years as such. It was established in 1975 with the sole objective of preventing any misuse of civilian cooperation for the nuclear technology. Tight export controls were instituted, and it remains one of the central pillars of the global nuclear non-proliferation architecture with only limited members. NSG basically says that the countries which already have nuclear weapons till 1974, and for example, here you have 7 countries mainly, they can only have nuclear weapons. Other countries should not test and create or build nuclear bombs as such. Now, the question in this particular topic is why nuclear waste matter, and the reason is simple. First of all, if you do not properly discharge nuclear waste, properly store nuclear waste, it can pose a significant hazard and risk to the environment by polluting groundwater, by polluting the soil, and by polluting even the atmosphere. Plus, nuclear waste, though it is a spent fuel or is a part of spent fuel, it is not completely free of radiation. So, if it is not properly stored inside the caverns or underground, in that case, radiation can keep leaking out of it. That can also create further challenge for the human population, habitation in that area. So, long-term storage is something that is planned by most of the countries, and it also, because we have seen a spent fuel itself can be used for generation of nuclear bomb, development of nuclear bomb. It is also today considered important from the perspective of national security, that it should not easily be accessible to anyone, either for smuggling purposes or trafficking purposes, and that's why full tight security is ensured in that area. The present day relevance of this entire discussion is on the basis the fact that repository debates again has become alive in USA, where nuclear waste has to be stored, how it has to be stored, how reprocessing has to be done if it is required, and how then transportation will be done. So this is entire US policy discussion revolving around today. But overall key takeaways from this entire discussion we can say is that more than 50 years have passed since India, under the leadership of former Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, conducted Operation Smiling Buddha. The lesson remains embedded in the international nuclear policy. In the nuclear age, there is no such thing as just waste. That means when you say or use the term nuclear waste, we have to be mindful that this nuclear waste is not just a waste. It has a humongous potential. It has enormous potential that can be transformed into a nuclear bomb, what India did in 1974 to the Operation Smiling Buddha. So that's all for this particular video. Thank you very much.